Hello everyone, my name is Sandy and I am a principal UX designer at a Silicon Valley company. And today I'm going to share with you what I majored in college in order to become a UX designer and the classes that I took that I believe helped me become a UX designer. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so I studied a bachelor's degree on industrial design, also known as product design. So my official college title is industrial designer or product designer. So what is industrial design? As we can see, industrial design is a professional practice of designing products, devices, objects, and services used by millions of people around the world every day. Industrial designers typically focus on the physical appearance, functionality, and manufacturability of a product, though they are often involved far more during a development cycle. All of this ultimately extends to the overall lasting value and experience a product or service provides for end users. Every object that you interact with on a daily basis in your home, office, school, or public setting is the result of a design process. During this process, many decisions are made by industrial designers and their team that are aimed at improving your life through well-executed design. So this is what I major on, and as you can see, this definition right here is very similar to what UX designers do. The only difference is that UX designers focus on digital product design and industrial designers focus on physical product design. That being said, we can get into the classes that I think shaped me as a UX designer. So I have my school thing here. I'm gonna go through the classes and I'm just gonna share with you the classes that I think that were relevant for my education as a UX designer. So we can start with the first semester here. The first class that I see is design methodology. This class I honestly believe is one of the most important classes a UX designer should have. In this class, we basically learn the different methodologies that are available for us to use when creating a product. So we learn, in this class, I learned we learned three main different methodologies. The one that I remember the most was Bruno Munari's design methodology. And something that I did a lot during college is that I will take different steps of the different processes, the different methodologies, and I would just combine them to whatever I thought I needed for my product that I was designing. So, okay, now another class that it was extremely important, it was our product design class. On this class, basically every semester, we will have three design projects where we had to design a product. And they will basically give us a challenge, and with this challenge, with this problem to solve, we will design a product. Now, my major had 4 years, it was a 4-year major, but we started having the design product class in third semester. So it was 3 years that I had this class. And every year it was 2 semesters, and in every semester it was 3 projects. So it was 18 projects that I did in college where I will design a product. Now, that being said, every time I will design any of these products, which was 18 times in college, we will use the design methodology. Therefore, we were able to practice the design methodology, the design process 18 times and apply it to real life objects. You know, it could be like, I don't know, literally, we did literally everything. We will just design the most basic stuff like this. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, since I did 18 product design projects, And since I did a combination of different design processes in order to find a solution for the problem we were solving, what this does to a student is that it makes you an expert at the process. You start doing the process without even realizing you're doing the process. So this is why I think the product design class mixed with the methodology design class really gave me the basis to become a UX designer, because you become an expert at the process. You become an expert at solving issues. You become an expert at doing it without even thinking about it. So once I graduated, I already had the process in my head. It was already in my head. I already knew what I had to do without even thinking about it. And it's just something that you just do naturally as a designer. So for me, those were the two more important classes, and not only as a UX designer, but as a designer in general. You need to know what is the design process. You need to know what are the different options of design processes that there are. You need to practice the design process. You need to fail on your projects. You need to learn from what you fail on. You need to improve the process for the next project that you work on, etc. What else do we have here? So we had visual arts in college. That was amazing. I loved the visual art class. This class, I think it was important in the sense of it helps designers allow themselves to be creative. You can just explore your creativity. You can look in different places for inspiration, and you can play with your creativity, and you can just be inspired. And I think this was the objective of these classes that we had for visual arts. Just explode the creativity that we had. I think a lot of people believe that creativity only applies to painting or to drawing, etc. But in reality, creativity applies for everything in life. Creativity applies for problem solving. When you're trying to solve a problem, you have to get creative. And you can solve problems in all areas in life. And usually there will be a way that people solve particular problems, but you want to challenge that. You want to be creative with the solution for the problem that you're trying to solve. I think ultimately these classes help create a designer that will be comfortable with being creative when trying to explore different solutions to a particular issue. Okay, moving on. I had a lot of classes about drawing. I had technical drawing. I have representation techniques where I draw a lot of cool sketches of objects. In this case, this classes apply for industrial design because you have to sketch the objects that you're designing. But I think it definitely helped me be able to sketch the way I do currently in UX design, so they definitely helped me as well. Okay, yeah, so basically I had a few classes for representation techniques, for technical drawing, etc., that allow me to become better and better at drawing objects. That was the objective of the classes, but ultimately they helped me be able to represent the ideas I want to communicate to my coworkers nowadays through sketches. So I think those classes did help me as well, but I will say it's not that important. Like, if you're not good at drawing, if you're not good at sketching, it doesn't really matter. As long as you can communicate the message that you want to communicate, that's it. That's what's important. So it helped me, yeah, but I don't think it's a super important quality of a UX designer. The objective is to communicate, and if you can communicate through digital wireframes, that's perfect. You don't have to draw if you don't want to, if you don't feel comfortable with it. But those classes were super cool and fun. So moving on, I had a creativity class. That's so cool. I didn't remember that. I think it was along the lines of visual arts. It was used to not be afraid of being creative, not be afraid of exploring different solutions to a problem. I think the main objective of a creativity class or visual arts class when you are studying design, it's to break out of the box, think out of the box, be creative, dare to do different solutions, dare to create something that it's not done before, etc. Okay, then I had these super cool classes that were history of art and architecture. Those classes were super, I loved those classes. I love my teacher. She was passionate about those classes. I love when teachers are passionate about their classes. So anyway, it's just to give you context on the history of design, like where it comes from, who were the main creators at a given time in history. And it's just exciting and fun, but it's not something that you need to know to be a UX designer. Moving on. Okay, so in third semester, I had ergonomics. Ergonomics, it's a very interesting subject that I think if you are a UX designer, you should know a little bit about. So basically, ergonomics is the way the human body interacts with objects. Meaning, if I hold this cup, it should fit my hand. If I sit on this chair, it should fit my body and it should be comfortable for me to use. Ergonomics is keeping the human body in mind when you're designing an object. So why are ergonomics relevant for UX design? I don't have a phone because I'm recording with my phone, so I'm gonna use this. My phone is huge, so as you can see when I hold it and I type in, it's a little bit big, but I'm used to it now. I think it's still comfortable. A lot of people don't like it, but that's a preference. Now, the reason why ergonomics matter on UX design, it's because when you're designing an application that is going to be used with your hands, that is going to be used on your phone, you need to keep in mind the user's interaction with the object being the phone, and with the phone being the one that has the application in it. For example, when they were designing the software for Apple, when they were thinking about swipe up, swipe, when they had the little circle on the phone that you could like just touch with your finger and unlock it, all of that is probably the result of ergonomics analysis for users. So it's important in that aspect, and that's that. And I think a lot of people don't even know ergonomics exists. So just being aware of it when you're designing an application for your users is important. That's it. But you don't have to be an expert in it. And also the moments when you are gonna think about ergonomics is just the interactions with the application itself, the micro interactions on the application. Just keeping ergonomics in mind, it's important. Then I had introduction to design. That's a very interesting one. So basically in introduction to design, they give you the history on industrial design. And it's super fun, it's super interesting because I love UX design, but I also love industrial design. So I loved that class. It was just like learning and discovering of where it all started, how it has evolved over time, who are the designers that have made history in our lives as humans. If there's one industrial designer that you know about, that will be Jonathan Ive. I think everyone knows about Jonathan Ive. He was the industrial designer for Apple. So yeah, he's one of the designers that has changed the life of humans. Okay, moving on. Okay, so one of the classes that I think was important for me as a UX designer is Anthropology. I had as well Anthropology 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, I don't know. But basically, anthropology is the study of humans and humans' behavior and humans' bias, humans' brains, etc. So having an understanding on humans' behaviors and how the society works and how the humans' brains work gives us the tools as designers to understand users and design for them and design for their real needs, not only for whatever we think they need, is for the actual need they have. So anthropology was very important for me because obviously having a full class about it for years makes you sort of an expert on observing human behavior. So you just become curious towards human behavior, you become a good analyst of human behavior, you know, you are just a good observer. And when you have these tools, you can design better because you understand the human behavior better. So yeah, I think that class was definitely very important for me and also super interesting, and I liked it a lot. Moving on. I had a class called Aesthetics. I'm pretty sure this class was about aesthetics of products and why it was important to have an aesthetic product to sell to a market. So it's the same thing. It applies for UX as well because we are selling a product, we're selling a design, and aesthetics matter. The way a product looks, it's important. So definitely this class was also important for me, but I wouldn't say it was like one of the most important ones when it comes to UX design. I mean, yes, it's very important, don't get me wrong. UI design, it's a whole thing. I think designers that are extremely good at UI are very successful and are very appreciated. I appreciate them. But in this case, the aesthetics class was focusing more on the philosophy of understanding the importance of it rather than doing it, because the doing it was in the final touches of the product. So moving on. Basic processes and materials. This class, when it comes to materials, doesn't really have anything to do with UX because we're talking about physical materials. For example, this plastic that is used in order to design this product. The part that has to do with UX is the process part. So when we talk about process and materials, we are referring to the process of building the product. So for example, when this thing was done, when this product was done, it was injected into a mold. The plastic itself, like the melt plastic itself, was injected to a mold, and this is how it looks when it's injected. That's how I know that it was done injected. There's different processes to build physical products. It depends if it's wood, if it's metal, if it's plastic, etc. There's different processes, but the part that I want to share with you is the part of being aware of the process your product is going to have in order to be cheap, in order for you to be able to sell it to your public, and in order to be fast, so that the production of the product itself is not expensive. Because obviously, if you're gonna sell a simple product like this product shouldn't be expensive. And also there's gonna be a lot of products similar to this in the market, so users are gonna obviously wanna buy something that has a decent price, right? So you have to be careful of how much the materials to build the product will cost, and you have to be careful about how much the process and the time and the people you're gonna hire to build the product will cost. So when you think about this with UX, it's basically the same thing. When you are designing an application, you want to design something that the developers can build. and you want to design something that can be built fast. So you're not gonna, if you're doing like a very new application for a startup company that doesn't have a lot of money to invest in development, you're not gonna design crazy interactions for the application, because there's no money for that. We don't have time for that. We just wanna get out a very simple app as fast as we can and just see if it's gonna work, right? So in that sense, I think being aware of the materials, in this case, the design that you do, and being aware of the process your design is gonna have, it's very important when designing applications, products, software, etc. So that was that. Moving on. One of the classes that I have that I think was also important to my mindset as a UX designer was semiotics. Semiotics is a systematic study of sign processes and meaning making. Semiosis is any activity, conduct, or process that involves signs, where a sign is defined as anything that communicates something, usually called meaning to the sign's interpreter. So I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but it's basically signals, signs. Everything in this world is a sign, and every sign communicates something. So basically, when we look at things around us, when we look at a screen, when we look at people, everything is communicating something. And what is being communicated is not always what you want to communicate. You know, it's all in the people's perspective to interpret the sign that they're reading. It's such an interesting subject, and I know it's a little bit confusing, but this subject, it's very important when you're designing screens, because you're designing screens either for mobile or either for laptop, computer, whatever. You're designing screens, and in these screens you're communicating a message to your user. So you have to be very smart in the way you design your screens so that it communicates what you want to communicate. And something very interesting about this that goes along with anthropology is that not everyone is going to have the same response to what you want to communicate. So you want to make sure the way you communicate your message is a way that most of the people are going to understand the message. And it's very difficult. It's extremely challenging to communicate the right thing to the user, but that's the job we had to do. So this is a semiotics class. It's a super interesting subject, and I loved it. So in 7th semester, I was actually doing an exchange program. I did an exchange program to South Korea. I went to Korea University to study industrial design as well. And I will say that was a very important phase in my education as well. Classes that I took, one was product design, one was, it was similar to UX design. That's the first time I designed an app in college. The other class that I had, materials and processes as well. So those were my 3 classes. What I learned in Korea University, basically, when I was studying industrial design, I learned to be more creative when creating products, because the kids there, I mean, I'm not saying kids at my college were not good. My college was pretty amazing, honestly. Now that I think about everything they offer back then, it was amazing. But I noticed in South Korea, in Korea University, there was this freedom to do whatever you wanted to do. They didn't give us any problem that we had to solve. Basically, they just say, design whatever you want to design. And that's exciting. You know, it's exciting to have the freedom to do just whatever you want to do. So it definitely made me more passionate about design. It made me more inspired. I saw what other people were doing. I saw what other countries were doing, because in this class we had the people from different countries, right? So it was just so interesting learning the design process and the design thinking, the design approach of other cultures, of other students around the world. And it was just so inspiring for me. I loved that. And then the class that I think was super cool as well, it's so funny because I never thought that I will be doing UX design. I didn't even knew about UX design back then, but I took a class. So basically what we had to do is that we had to design an application. And I remember I designed an application for calendar, I think. But that was my first approach to UX design. It's very interesting because I often forget that I actually did have a little bit of UX in college. It was in a different college, but it was the first approach I had to UX. It was really good. I think about it and I'm just like, But anyways, I learned a lot as well in that class. I learned a little bit of coding. That was a good class. Okay guys, so that's it. That's what I studied in college. Those were the classes that I took, and as you saw in the video, some of these classes have definitely given me the basis to become a UX designer. And yeah, I hope this video was fun to watch, entertaining. I hope you had a little bit of insights of what industrial designers study in college and why a lot of industrial designers move on to the UX world. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching this video and see you later.